there's a sweet spot for people who are interested in buying businesses, which is people that are between, I'd say like 250 EBITDA and like 2 million.
Welcome to Business Buying for Financial Independence. I'm Tim Delaney, and I help young professionals buy small businesses so they can escape the 9-to-5 and take control of their time, income, and future. If that sounds like you, hit the subscribe button and let's get into it. Welcome to Business Buying for Financial Independence. My guest today is Jimmy Feemen, an entrepreneur who launched No Baked at the age of 23 and turned it into a widely recognized dessert brand. He's run e-commerce, scoop shops, franchised his concept, and even explored the world of consumer packaged goods. Now, as he steps away from day-to-day operations, he's helping others navigate franchising. If you've ever considered buying a franchise or franchising your own business, this episode is for you. Jimmy, welcome to Business Buying for Fi.
Thanks for having me on, Tim.
Anytime. Let's kind of start at the beginning. How did No Baked come about, and what's the story behind that?
Yeah, so about a year and a half out of college, I was living with my girlfriend, now wife, at the time, and she really hated her job. And so she was looking for any reason to quit. Started selling her cookie dough recipe at the farmer's market and online, and quit her job about a month into that, and then roped me into it. So I ended up being the guy that like did all the operations, right? Like I was in the kitchen making the cookie dough, figuring out where we would store it, and then figuring out how we would eventually open like a scoop shop, like a small like bakery, like dessert shop business. And Megan did a lot of the marketing and sales and like, going out there and like building the brand. But it was really something that drove both of us toward entrepreneurship because it gave us freedom. And so I resonated a ton with like your podcast and your message because of that. I mean, at the end of the day, I think for probably 95% of business owners, entrepreneurs, like the goal is not necessarily to change the world. You're always finding a problem to solve. Mm-hmm. But the real goal is probably like, I didn't want to have a boss. And the goal for Megan was definitely, I don't want to have a boss. And then when she showed me that that was possible, I was like, yeah, I'll quit my job too. So yeah, about 3 months after we started the business, we both were doing it full time, which could be seen as risky, but at the same time, I think when you're 23, it's pretty easy to take pretty big risks and not get repercussions from it. We didn't have a lot of bills. So that was kind of the inception of the brand. And then from there, it grew very organically. And then our immediate thought, because it was a retail business, was to franchise it. And so that's kind of like the first way that we tried to scale the business. And it went really, really well until the pandemic.
Yeah, it's probably caught a couple people off guard. Nobody saw that coming. But back to, you quit your job just 3 months into this, which sounds crazy. It sounds risky. But for people that don't want a boss, it's definitely a freeing thought of you can actually quit your job and go take a chance on yourselves. Were there family or friends or coworkers who tried to talk you out of doing that?
All of the above. All of the above. Most people in our lives thought we were completely insane.
And how many of them had ever opened a scoop shop before?
None. Right? None. Yep. But there were even people who had business experience or owned their own businesses who told us not to do it. Looking back on it, I think now I've gotten to the point where I do tell a lot of people, like, please don't, especially when they come at me with like, I'm going to open my brand new, whatever it might be. Yeah. Because I figure if I tell them no and they still do it, they definitely have what it takes. Yeah. It's some reverse psychology.
It's a good attitude. I find myself telling some people not to do it as well. It's, even though publicly I'm encouraging anybody to give it a try, it's a weird thing. I've known I feel like people do that in every industry they're in. It's people that I know successful pizzeria owners that discourage anybody from ever trying to get into it. Not for fear of competition. I know doctors who tell people they're crazy if they want to go to medical school. It's funny how that, even though they make a successful life out of it, they still discourage others from doing it. So my point is, don't listen to other people It's
No, you should
bet
you
on
definitely
yourself.
shouldn't. If I'd listened to other people, I would be in a very different place in my life right now. And I think when you hear a lot of those no's in the beginning, you have to have so much conviction about the thing that you're doing that you're willing to do it. The other thing I'll say about quitting your job, and I truly do believe this, I believe that once you choose to do entrepreneurship as a career, or you choose to own a business as a career, that should be your full-time job. Your 9 to 5 should in fact be the business. That does not mean you can't have a 5 to 9. So if you couldn't pay your bills, for instance, that summer, I would drive for Uber, or I would go DoorDash some food, or I would find many, many other ways to like side hustle for money so I could pay my bills. But my full-time job was the business, because the business is where my focus was. So like a little different than what some other people have said in the past, where they're like, hey, you should probably like not quit your job immediately. I'd say if you have a family like I do now, definitely you be very careful before just making the leap. But I do think when you choose to make the leap, you have to make the leap. And you have to have in the back of your head that this lifestyle may require 100-hour weeks in the beginning from you, because you may have to find other ways to make money. And then once it works, or you do what you've done before, and what I think a lot of people honestly should start with, which is buying an existing business, or buying something with cash flow, or stepping into something where you know that there's something happening. When I quit my job, I mean, yeah, actually, to that point, when I quit my job, Megan was already doing the farmers markets. We already had cash flow coming in. We actually were making enough money to pay all of our bills. We were just attempting to save as much as we could to open our store eventually. And I think that it is important to at least know how you're going to make a living, right? You can't just quit your job day one with an idea.
Yeah.
That's a terrible idea.
Yep. Yeah. So even though it sounds crazy, you quit your job after 3 months for doing this. She already had a track, like she had a proven concept. People were buying the product. It might not have been cash flowing positive yet, but there was some traction there.
Yeah. And when you think about it, like in those early days, if you run a business lean enough, like, yeah, there's cash flow. Like, what are you
Yeah.
really paying for if you're doing a farmer's market? You pay to do the market, you pay to make the product, you probably have really good margins. It's a farmer's market product. And then, you pay employees. Well, employees are you. You are the employee. So as long as there's money left over for employees, there's money left over for you. And with a grain of salt, it's like at the time, I think our bills were like $3,000 a month. Like
Mhm.
all the money we needed to live, like bills, food, like this was a very long time ago. But yeah, you figure it out, and it is just a math problem at the end of the day. Like I said, everyone should know, especially before you're going to do this, like how much money do you need to survive? If you know that number and you can stick inside of it, then it should be pretty easy.
Yeah, that's an important point. If you have a lavish lifestyle that you don't want to give up in any way, shape, or form, starting from scratch is definitely not for you, because it's just going to be some pain points. Buying a business might be for you if the cash flow's there and you're able to still sustain that lifestyle. But you said something interesting about not about giving up your 9 to 5, but still being willing to work a 5 to 9, which I like that thought process and approach. So, and I think especially for a lot of people that are either thinking about entrepreneurship or thinking about buying a business, they work an office job, they work a job where they're bringing baggage home with them at night. So even though it's a 9 to 5, they still have emails buzzing all hours of the night. They still get phone calls. They still have to think about things that are not, they shouldn't be if they're punching a clock. So if you flip the script on that and focus on your business 9 to 5, and then pick up those side hustles. If you drive for Uber, you are thinking about it when you're working, and then you go home, and nobody's calling you or emailing you or asking for your 3-month strategy plan and your expense reports. So I really like that model. It's a good
Yeah,
way
I
of
mean,
thinking.
when you see people really dive into like a 9 to 5 job and they get, any sort of responsibility in the corporate world, like it does begin to consume your life, similar to entrepreneurship, especially if you like your job. I've seen it happen to my brother. He takes a lot of pride in what he does. He works at a fintech company and manages like 2 different teams. And takes his work home with him. But he likes it. But at the same time, it's like, when would my brother start a business or focus on, buying an existing business or doing anything like that? It's like he wouldn't have the time. He doesn't currently. And if he wanted to have that, he would have to basically make a plan to be like, okay, I'm going to step away from this so I can have a new like passion project, like your business or your job or whatever it should be that you're doing in that 9 to 5 hours. Like that should be something you like doing and you focus on. And yeah, you'll take it home with you. But like you said, if you've like DoorDash, Uber, like all these different ways, I've gained it out with ChatGPT before to kind of drive the point home for someone I was mentoring. And I was like, dude, like if you wanted to, you can make $10,000 a month. You would be driving all the time. Like there's like all these different things you could do. There's like TaskRabbit, there's all this stuff. And I'm sure like, yeah, you'll be paying for gas and all this other things. But like if you need to make the money, like the opportunity is there. There's a lot of cool things in the world that we live in right now in 2025 that didn't even exist, 10 years ago in 2015, when I was getting started. So like the opportunity is there, I think, to do a little bit more of that like side hustle stuff and the 5 to 9, like you said, and it's not something you take baggage with. I mean, that's great. That's how it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Even a retail shop or a job in a related industry that you want to get into or you're getting into. If you're opening a scoop shop, go get a job at a Subway or a Cold Stone
Yeah.
or something else in the evening to pick up some good habits or some best practices, things like that. Moving into so you started the scoop shops, you quit your job after 3 months, it started taking off. What was kind of the lead in to e-commerce and consumer packaged goods and things like that?
Yeah. So long story short, what happened with No Baked was we had a ton of success in the beginning. I think we accidentally built brand and built hype over the summer, and then we opened the scoop shop. There's a line out the door. It does really well. You make all your money back from building the store. You think, wow, this is a great concept to franchise. So we jumped into that, reinvested all of the money into that, and then we opened another store in Louisville, Kentucky. You fast forward 2 years from October 2017 to October 2019, we had opened 9 stores, some of them franchised, some of them not, some of them we owned. And we were sitting there and we are like, some of the stores aren't doing well. Don't really know why we're doing this. Maybe this is the wrong way to deliver the product to the customer. We start questioning ourselves. We're like, we used to sell cookie dough online. Don't do that anymore because we got so focused in on the one vertical. Let's try it. And so we kind of tried it out again in like December, January of 2019, 2020. Good time to start trying e-commerce on accident.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got forced into it by the pandemic, like all the way. Got forced into a hard pivot of the business model. And so that's what brought about e-commerce, which was the packaged pint jar of cookie dough that you can now go buy at the Fresh Market, on DoorDash, a bunch of different grocery stores. And yeah, the way we got into CPG actually was very similar. E-commerce in general, direct to consumer, sounds really great. Probably people like, that you've interacted with that have actually bought like either fulfillment businesses or warehouse businesses or, existing brands online that do well. They all went through kind of a little bit of a mini recession in the end of the beginning of 2022. There was an iOS update that affected digital ads and how they're targeted. And there were also a lot of other shifts macroeconomically that I think began to affect people, especially with the funding environment. And so that caused us to question a lot of things. And when questioning a lot of things, Megan and I tends to make fast decisions. And so that's when we decided to do the grocery thing and get into consumer packaged goods and say like, could we sell this in the grocery store? Can you sell it in a convenience store setting? And our first retailers we onboarded in January of 2022. And then since then, we've grown to have national distribution with a couple distributors, built a really big focus into that business. And yeah, today it's established and it's a 7-figure revenue stream. I would say that though, it's probably the most difficult of all of them to manage. And I did not, like, eyes wide open, like, hindsight 2020. I did not know how hard it would be. I think we were lucky because we had an existing business. Our existing restaurants, our scoop shops really funded it or ended up funding it. By that point, well, the world opens back up. My shops are back open. Like things are like kind of clicking again. And you start to see the dark side of like D2C, the dark side of CPG, the dark side of having a packaged product, really, which is that the margins are a lot thinner. The requirement to acquire the customer is a lot higher because when you have a retail store, it's all about location and then offering. You nail the location one time and then the offering one time, and then you do a little bit of marketing, a little bit, and it works, right? You know that you own retail stores. It's like
Yep.
it has a lot to do with location. When you get into direct to consumer, your location is your website. It is constantly in flux against the rest of the internet. And so you'll run ads, you'll have strategies, you'll build email lists, you'll build text lists. And you'll really hustle and grind to basically make like 5% net margin after shipping and returns and all of the stuff. If you're lucky, you be profitable and you'll make 3 to 5%. And it becomes a very competitive business, especially if you factor in like the marketplaces like Amazon. It's even different, where your Amazon listings are like your storefront, and those are hyper competitive. And again, like you're going to look at like 3 to 5% net margins. And when you look at CPG at scale, you can make a ton of money. And I think Mars and Hershey and Kellogg's and all the like have proven that you can print money, making food for the masses. Getting there is really hard. Distribution is really difficult and complicated and makes no sense. It's a multiple tiered system of like B2B buying. So like I sell my product to the distributor who sells it to the grocery store, who sells it to the consumer. And you're dealing with all 3 layers of the value chain. So you have to have a good relationship with the distributor who has different things they care about than the retailer who has different things they care about than your customers. And you have to try to make them all happy all at the same time. And really, I'll counter that with, if you're able to unlock the thing that is so hard, and I would say very few people, we're talking like 1 in 1,000 brands will unlock the thing that is consumers, the end of the chain, care so much that the distributors and the retailers can, F off. Like if you get to that position, great for you. And you own a liquor store, so like there are some brands where they command that kind of power from you and from the distributor, but like those are few and far between. In your industry especially, those brands are coming and going, and you're like, I mean, guys, like I can ask you for a free case, you can ask them to come sample, like they're going to put a ton of effort in and they may not make any money. And I would say that like the more I've thought about it, the more I've realized, yeah, it is really hard, because when you think about it, if I'm selling a $5 product, I have to sell it to millions of people to make this thing work. Whereas if I'm selling like $1,000 product, this is what cut that down by like a factor of 100, basically. And then there's iterations of that, right? And there's other businesses where they work when they're not at scale, like a liquor store, like a scoop shop, like, thousands of other businesses that can be actual small businesses. Those are insulated from that problem, because it's like, how many customers do you need for your liquor store to make money? I don't know, but it's definitely not 5 million.
Nope.
Like 5 million people walk in the door. It's going to be wild.
They wouldn't fit even in a year, probably.
So you just a lower requirement of customer acquisition, and that customer acquisition requirement, when you have low net margins and a low dollar product, you're talking about the most competitive. I think if I could have picked only one category that would have been worse, and it would have been beverage. That would have been the worst category to go into, especially alcohol, because it's just so difficult. You have to acquire so many customers, make so many people care, and most likely you're not going to.
Especially in today's day and age too, with the internet and with so many co-packing opportunities and white labeling opportunities out there. I feel like everybody and anybody thinks they can take grandma's recipe and package it up and get it on shelves everywhere overnight. And
you've probably seen that in alcohol so much.
Oh, tons.
Wild. You'll have like some random guy come in and be like, I have a tequila brand. You're like, everyone has a tequila brand.
Yep.
The Rock has one. You have one. Your mom has one.
Yep. And you're Joe Schmo from the middle of nowhere in New York who's got no following anywhere, and you're going to compete with the Rock and every other celebrity on the planet that has a
Yeah.
tequila brand now. It's
So like,
tough.
guys, this is
Yep.
insane. Like, no
Yep.
one's gonna come in and buy it. And you
Yep.
probably see that. Like, people come
Right.
in, they buy
Yeah.
like probably like 10% of like the brands, and it's
Yep.
like a lot of the other ones just sit.
Yep.
No one knows
Yep.
what they are.
And to your point, there are those small companies starting up that that make a good impression on us as retailers, that we will get behind a little bit more. We'll support a little bit more. We'll recommend them. But that's one small store out of thousands around the country, and it's impossible
They
for
got to
them
do
to
that
do
with
that to
a
everybody.
ton. Yeah, they got to do
And
that
they,
with a ton
yeah,
of stores.
yeah, and they have to stay on the good side of their distributor, so the distributor doesn't short the products or not reorder and all that crazy stuff. You said something about those big, massive brands. Like we have brands in our store that are huge names that I can't remember the last time anybody ever brought a sample around, or they don't even have sample budgets for them because they don't need to. If you're opening a new restaurant or a new store or you own a store, you just have to have that product. That's it. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If somebody walks into the bar and asks for that product, you don't have it. What kind of place is this?
Yeah. And the crazy thing about that is I think people also underestimate the factor of time it takes in order to create that.
And those
So if you
those
look
brands are dozens of decades old, usually.
Yeah, especially in the alcohol space. It's like they
Yeah.
have been cemented in generations
Yeah.
of people. Like
Yeah.
you saw it on your grandfather's shelf growing up. So it's like, of course I buy Jack Daniels. Granddad bought Jack Daniels. And then it's like, we don't even know why we wouldn't buy Jack Daniels. It's the only thing we buy.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely wild.
Yep. Yeah. And yeah. You mentioned Mars, M&M's, Hershey's, like all those brands have been around for well over 100 years, 150 years. It's wild. That's why they're cemented in the retail space.
Yeah. Absolutely crazy.
Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about franchising. So we kind of skipped over why you started franchising to jump into the CPG stuff. Yeah, let's circle back to the actual why you got into franchising in the first place. What you opened a scoop shop and it was doing well. What made you think, let's franchise this?
So I think for us, it was like the most obvious option at the time. And I think when you put a lot of thought into something, you may come to different conclusions. And so I would chalk that up honestly to just being 23 years old. So you look at the most obvious option, you go with that path. Now looking back on it, it actually was a really good idea. There were a ton of landmines though that we stepped on as like a franchisor that I wish I would not have. One of the biggest ones was selling franchises to the wrong operators. And them getting into it thinking like, oh, this will be like buying a rental property. You probably find that all the time, like helping people, figure out like, hey, I'm gonna buy a cash flowing business. Sounds really cool. What they don't understand is that no, it's not a rental property. You definitely can do the whole like I work 10 hours a week thing, but it is 10 hours. It's not at all. And I would say that like we have some scoop shops now, like just based on that model. I have some scoop shops that the one downtown in Nashville, for instance, I think probably if you add up all the time me and Megan spent on the shop, it's probably about 2 hours a week. Like answering the Slack channel messages that the manager references us in, and then dealing with like administrative stuff that's like beyond the scope of like the GM or like our shipping manager that works there. So it can become a very passive business, but that took years, and it took like training the right staff and getting the right people in the right seats and really focusing on it. And so what I tried to then in the later stages, like teach franchisees to do was that process. But I think we were really young when we got into it, and we picked it because it seemed like an easy way to make money, when really it's a really hard way to make money, although really rewarding. And it seems like it's a quick growth strategy. And now what I warn people who would like to franchise their business is it's definitely faster than organic growth if you find the right people, but it's definitely not a quick growth strategy, because you'll end up, if you say we're to go out and aggressively franchise a brand, you will end up with a ton of franchisees who should not be there. And those people will corrupt the brand. They will be very unhappy with you. And then they will take that unhappiness and it will ruin your life. We ended up with a
And
lot
your
of,
brand.
yeah, we ended up with a lot of good franchisees though. And to this day, I've never had a bad one. I would say we had some that were not right for it. And we had 2 of them close. Um, but they also went through the pandemic. They bought their franchises in 2019. They opened their stores. They did really well. Then the pandemic happens. It throws a wrench in their lives. And this thing that they thought was going to make them money ends up being a headache. And you've probably seen that before as well. Like sometimes you can acquire a business and it just is not what you thought it would be. There's always a path forward to success, but there's always risk. And the newer of a brand that you're buying from the franchisee side, you have to know that there's actually a ton of negotiating power you have against the franchisor to have a really good deal. At the same time, there's way more risk. This is not established brand. And that affects like your ability to just kind of be hands off and like, it's going to work. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I would say it's a good path.
Yeah. And you as a franchisor, somebody that I've had a couple of conversations with now, I can tell extremely intelligent, your business stuff, your systems. There are probably plenty of other people out there that go start a franchise system and don't even know half as much as you. And if you're a young franchisee buying into that, thinking that you're going to have all these systems and processes and everything done for you, you're in for a world of surprise.
Yeah, and it's more common than you'd think. I would say it's one of the best ways to avoid ruining your reputation and having the whole thing like blow up in your face is to put those systems in place first. And I got really good advice when I was 23 on that specific topic. I actually sought out a lot of mentors, a lot of people that like had done it before. And we're in Nashville, it was a little easier. Nashville has a very long history of like big franchise system, like food companies. Shoney's is based here. So like Shoney's Group, Wendy's, like a lot of other people were based here. And so good talent, good people to talk to. And they all gave me the same advice. So, like 2 things. One, you have to have everything like completely operationalized, SOPs for literally everything. Um, and the other thing you have to do, like no matter what, is you have to make sure your franchisees are getting a good deal. And I didn't understand that at the time, but really when you're buying a franchise and for the people listening, what you're buying and what you should ask their franchisor about is you're buying 1, the brand, that brand value that's worth the royalty and the franchise fee. 2, you're buying the systems. And so what do the systems look like? Are they good enough to like have you working 2 hours a week? Like, is that a possibility? Is that what you want? And then 3, you're really buying like all of this other extra support, like the product that you may not have on your own. So for a service business, that might be a lead gen platform where like everybody's going to like Rescue Rooter for plumbing. Like you type in rescue or like plumbing to Google, like they're the first one coming up, and then they're funneling those leads to their franchisees. Awesome. Or like you're a Remax franchisee, that's technically a franchise, and you're a broker. You getting brand power, and like that matters to you. For No Bake, you were getting our product. Right, and our product is second to none. Is the best edible cookie dough on the market. We made sure it was that way. We manufacture it for you. And then we teach you all about using it and like what you need to do to make it a good experience for the customer. Give you our recipes for our desserts, like make sure all those are buttoned up. We're doing recipe development for you, making sure that's good. And then we might add on other things. Like if you're a Crumble franchisee these days, I think they have their own POS that they built for their franchisees, their own inventory systems, scheduling systems, like ton of software that you just kind of get for free. Or at like a huge discount to like what you would be paying for it. They do all of that because when I'm justifying that like 6% royalty, it should be like, yeah, you're going to pay me 6% so you can make an extra 10. So like your revenue will be higher because you chose to buy a franchise rather than go it on your own. And in my experience, actually in edible cookie dough, that was 100% the case. Our stores outperformed like mom and pops all the time. A lot of the times because they had bad systems. And that usually ends up in a restaurant environment, resulting in like a dirty store or like just out of stock, dirty store, staff doesn't care. Here we are. And like then that snowballs. Or people start to lose money, they start to like cut hours back. They'll be like, well, we're closed on Mondays, or they'll like randomly close on a day, and
Yeah.
you're like, what's happening?
I hate that.
Yeah, and
As a
you lose
consumer.
trust.
Yep.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
lose trust in the restaurant. You're like, what are we doing? Like,
Yep.
is it closed on Wednesday? What's
Yep.
happening?
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, avoiding all those things. Like that's what the franchisor should be helping you do. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what we tried to help people do. Now, like from the like the side of things that I'm on in kind of like a new journey in my life, I'm helping a couple restaurants like learn through that process in order to franchise, like help them make their ops manual, help them make their sales program. Um, and I would say that like that is like it's just a lot of front end work that someone should do if they care, and you can do it yourself for sure. There are a ton of online resources for it, and you don't necessarily need to hire like consultants or anything like that. But if you want to like circumnavigate the process and make sure it's perfect, you should, and that's what I did. We worked with a firm out of Chicago. Today, if you want to do it, you should work with me. No, I'm just,
Yep.
just kidding.
Yep.
But no, like people should find someone with experience though, at least, and get their advice.
I mean, I think that's a good practice for any business, whether or not you intend to franchise it or not. Systematizing and creating, process manuals and SOPs for as much as you possibly can in your business is a way of freeing yourself from the operations day to day. I mean, that's what I did. I didn't do it to a franchising level, but from the day I bought my liquor store, I started to look for ways to document everything I could. I had other staff members document what they were doing so that we can hand things off to the next person when they come in. It's just a logical thing to do, whether or not you're ever thinking about franchising. And to Jimmy's point, you can do everything yourself. You can do it faster and probably better by hiring somebody else, but it's up to you and what your
There's a ton of
ultimate goal
resources
is.
these days too.
Yeah.
There's a really great book that has nothing to do with franchising or any of this, but it's like very relevant, called Buy Back Your Time.
Yeah. Dan
Um,
Martell.
yeah, Dan's book is great for like helping people understand like the importance of the SOP. Like
Yeah.
you want to like learn like that. He has a cool system for it that I can't remember what he calls them. Oh yeah, employee playbooks. But like having some kind of guide for like, you hire a new manager, get some videos, got some like SOP documentation, like some documents, and then they kind of know how to do their job, like not completely, but like, maybe like 80% without
Yep.
talking to anybody. If you hire really good people and like you have good culture, that should be enough to get people on board real fast.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great book for this. There's also some awesome AI tools out there now especially if you do a lot of stuff on your computer, if you're in that type of industry, for tracking your clicks and what you're doing and creating documentation on that quickly and simply. Tango.us is one that I've used recently, which was
Interesting.
pretty incredible for that on computer stuff. Just tracks your clicks, makes a whole document with screenshots, and has the video there too if you need it.
That's really cool. So it's like screen
Yeah.
recording you and like tracking what you're doing.
Yeah,
That's
doing
awesome.
everything, and then it makes a separate, step 1 when you click your mouse, step 2 when you click again, and it's, it screws up a little bit here and there, but
Yeah.
it's not hard to fix either. You just go back and edit out the steps. So you talked a little bit about what somebody should look for in a franchise if they're thinking about that route. What about somebody that's just in general looking to buy a business and they're not sure whether they want to go, small mom and pop side or a franchise, a Subway, Cold Stone, McDonald's, whatever, things like that, that's already existing and operational? Are there
Yeah.
certain things that they should look for, and are there reasons that they should do something like that over a mom and pop?
I think it depends on the amount of work you want to put in. So like you probably know this from your experience even with like the first liquor store. It's like you buy that business and you kind of have to like know what you're doing a little bit, or be willing to learn really fast on your own. If you're one of those people, you might be able to buy mom and pop and kill it. Because you won't be paying a royalty for someone. And again, like I would say that like you have to justify the royalty for you, not necessarily for every single person on earth. So like if you're the type of person that likes to pay for a service so that you can get somewhere faster, franchising is probably better. Whereas if you want to put in the time and work, and sometimes if you want to learn, or like maybe you buy a business and you want to franchise it, like that's where your head is at because you're like more of an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
That can be like a really, really good route to that. And it also can be a really good route to learn. Yeah, if you become a franchisee, you may not learn like everything. It's a lot like working in the corporate world. I have some friends that are like large operators of like Subway. I can't remember what the other ice cream chain is called. Uh, oh, it's Sonic. Sorry, it's not ice cream chain.
Okay, sorry.
And
Yeah.
you have like people like that where like they've learned to do the system. Actually, a lot of really great franchisees are ex-military because they follow systems like to the T. Like that, if you're that kind of guy or gal, like you should be like, oh, like I'm really good, like follower of instruction manual. Like I could build a Lego set in like 10 minutes if you give me instructions. I kill it with that. I should do that. And then if you're the type of person that wants to kind of like invent something, like build a system, like you're the builder of the system itself, you're going to write the instruction manual, then maybe the mom and pop is like right for you because it sounds like even you, Tim, like you've gone and like made the SOPs for your store, figured out better ways to do things. It's like, no, you're not going to have that flexibility with a franchise. And the older the franchise system is, the less flexibility you will have because they figured it out for you and you're going to follow their system. And so, yeah, actually advice I was given a long time ago was you should try to sell franchises to ex-military. They get great SBA loan rates and they follow instructions really well. I was like, interesting, but it makes sense. Or like engineers, like people that were in engineering background, they do really well with franchises. Usually they've like made good money. And with the military thing too, it's like they usually have pension, healthcare, like all the stuff's taken care of. Like you're 45 and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do. Like if you're listening to this and you are ex-military, think about yourself. Like you're actually pretty great
Yep.
as a person. It's a cool
Yeah.
path.
Yep. Yeah. That makes complete sense of that, following the systems and the processes, because that's what they do in the military. And that's I love your Lego analogy there for who should buy a business or mom and pop versus a franchise, because it is that person that wants to follow the book, do exactly what the book says, and produce some amazing thing that Lego laid out for you is perfect for a franchise. Whereas that person that wants to take that set and throw out the instruction book and create something magical out of what they have is a different person that might not operate within those confines. And that was me when I was looking to buy my first business. Is I just knew that a franchise wasn't the right fit for me because I wanted to be able to do things that the way I wanted to do them. And
Yeah.
so knowing yourself, I guess, is more important than whether or not a franchise is a good deal or not a good deal.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these decisions are about knowing yourself, aren't they?
Yeah.
Where you think to yourself, am I a instruction manual guy? Am I going to build instruction manuals? Like, what do I want to do with my life? Business is not all that different in my mind, like owning a business than working for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could work for a startup, you could work for different industries, you can do different kinds of jobs. Some of them are a little bit more structured, some of them are less structured. And we live in a world that, for the most part, in my experience, most people like structure a lot. And there's about 10% of people that don't, like myself, like maybe you, because you were like, I want to do this thing on my own. And maybe those are the people that like built stuff with all their Legos that weren't supposed to be built. But yeah, you want to think really, really hard about like who you are and like what you want out of it. Because really the only difference between working for someone else and becoming an entrepreneur or a business owner actually has to just be like, am I willing to take on like more risk in my life or less risk? Because as an employee, you're transferring your income risk to your employer, and they transfer money to you in return. And so like as an employer, then you just don't have anyone holding that risk back. There's no insurance policy against like income. And so it's like more like a different dynamic on the risk spectrum, but it's completely the same dynamic on like how much structure do you want in your life? Because like you said, you could buy an existing business, you can buy a franchise, you can do many different things to be self-employed. And in fact, actually, you could be like a contractor, like a subcontractor for a construction company, technically be self-employed, say yes or no to projects, and you basically are an employee. Like, you would get a lot of structure and you do the exact same sort of work every day, and that might make sense to you, and, like, your life is still incredibly much more risky than an employee's, though. But you also have more freedom. So, like, you trade that, like, flexibility and, like, time freedom for, like, risk. It's all just trades. Um, but I would never ever say to someone like, "Oh, like, if you like structure, you can't own a business." Because I'm like, no, sometimes, like, that's really good
Yep.
if you like structure.
Yeah, it makes logical sense. You want to build a business that has structure, so if you like structure, you're gonna build it because you need it in your life.
Yeah.
Um, um, you we talked a little bit about what makes a good franchise. Like if you own a business and you're thinking about franchising, or the kind of the initial steps you need to take. What about people that are looking at buying businesses and see that mom and pop, or that burger stand in their neighborhood that's got an amazing brand, that they're like, maybe I could buy that and franchise it. They've never franchised. How come? Why haven't they expanded? There's opportunity there. What how would you think about that kind of opportunity?
I think I think if you were to, like, rank opportunities that are kinda unique to our timeline, like our time and place in history, I think that's one of the largest ones. Um, Things that people like you are working on specifically, like, you can go out and you can buy businesses from people that are retiring. A lot of the time, and I actually looked at a business to buy in Evansville, Indiana. I won't say which one, because I don't know if I can, but I looked at buying their business. There's a chain of ice cream shops. If you live in Evansville, you probably know who they are. They had an ice cream factory along with it, which is what I wanted. But I was familiar with the shop business. Obviously, they have 7 scoop shops. It's like a decent business. It's been around for, I wanna say 75 years. The owner right now actually bought it from the original founder. And he's 90, so, like, been around a while. Um, and there is an opportunity there where you had, like, a good brand. Maybe the brand needs, like, a little refresh, maybe. The good menu that's proven over time and built up a regional focus, like, the SOPs are, like, dialed, dialed in. They owned all the real estate for all the buildings, obviously, already. Things been around for forever, and it was just poised to grow. And if you ask them why has it not grown, they're like, "Dude, we don't want to." Like, the original owner, he's not the CEO anymore, he's 90. The CEO, his daughter, is 65. They do not want to grow. And by the way, her kids don't wanna run this business. They're like, "Nah, we have nothing to do with it." And her sister's kids also are like, "No." And her and her sister both work there, like CEO, CMO style thing. They've done an incredible job running this company. They do not wanna grow it. Maybe they didn't have the capital, the resources, whatever, doesn't matter. What matters is that, like, that's the opportunity, right? Someone's retiring, they're gonna trade this thing, as you know, like 3, 5x, maybe. Like, probably less, if we're honest. No one wants to buy it, right? There's not a lot of buyers in that market, and I know from doing what I've done on the institutional side, if you have a brand like No Baked, like my brand, and I was going to raise capital and try to exit, I cannot exit my business unless I'm doing north of 3 million in EBITDA. So, like, private equity. They just don't have you're not big enough for them to deploy the amount of capital they need to deploy to justify the return to the fund. So, like, there's a sweet spot for people who are interested in buying businesses, which is people that are between, I'd say, like, 250 EBITDA and, like, 2 million. You're in that, like, sweet spot, and you've probably talked about this before. It's like, wow, like, there's a cool business, and by the way, I can buy it for 2x because there's no buyers. It's just me. Like, I don't know how many people looked at that ice cream company, but it was, like, not a lot. Um, I don't know, maybe 4 over the course of months. You try If anyone's ever tried to sell a house before, by the way, if you have a weird house, hard to sell. Businesses like that are a quote unquote "weird house" because like, they're in this odd supply and demand situation where there's just not a lot of demand. Supply of one, so that's interesting. There's non-fungible supply of one, but technically there are other businesses people could buy, so Maybe it's not a supply of one. Maybe it's everything in your price range that's similar to you. Now it's not a supply of one. Now it's a supply of a lot. At the same time, as there's all these people retiring, you have demand that's like very low. No one wants to. I do not know why. Entrepreneurship and business ownership has been declining in the United States, not going up. So there's less demand. They're just basic economics, man. Like you're going to pay 2, 3x. You're going to get this killer business. You're going to use SBA loan debt to buy it, which, some people have a weirdness about personal guarantees, but I would say like in that specific situation, you could have used a real estate loan to buy the, like, call it $4 million in real estate and tacked on top money to buy the business, or just done seller financing for the rest. They really just wanted to exit their real estate portfolio. And like you have these interesting opportunities, and you could ask me why I didn't buy it. And it's like mostly because I don't want to live in Evansville, Indiana. That's literally what happened. I just realized like I can't hire someone to go there, and I'm not going to go there. And so I don't have that problem in Nashville, where it's like if I want to hire people that work for NoBake, it's actually quite easy because it's a big city with a lot of talent and people are moving here. So recruiting is super simple. But to flip that on its head to your original question, yes, that is the opportunity. And so then you have to ask yourself, if I'm the builder and I want to build the system, then maybe that's the way I do it. Because I would have never franchised to NoBaked if I could go back in time. It was too early. We're starting to sell franchises again this year. As of like this month, like we're gonna file our FTD, and the difference is I have like almost a decade of sales data. I understand the product, the SOPs. When I franchised it the first time, it was like a year in.
Yeah,
there's no data.
It's amazing anybody even bought one.
People are silly, man. People are silly. They saw the trend of edible cookie dough, and they thought, well, the easiest way to get in on this is I'll buy this franchise from this guy. Same thing happened with Crumble. The same thing will happen with like Froyo, all these other things where people say like, oh, I want to hop in on the trend. I don't want to start my own. I'm going to franchise this thing, even though there's no backup data. And then you have situations like the frozen yogurt recession. Like what's going on, like no offense, Crumble. It's probably what's going to happen to Crumble. There's no stopping it. People buy the things. Half the people that bought them probably aren't even qualified. And I've heard through the grapevine that the sales of a Crumble drop like 30% a year for the first 3 years.
I could see that. People get super excited. I know there was one that opened or a couple that have opened near me, and people were talking about it nonstop the first 6 months or so.
Yeah, so you can imagine a situation where it goes from 3 million because it was popping, which is that would be crazy actually. It goes from 2 million. This be normal. 2 million to like 1.2 down to like 800, and then down to like normal dessert shop levels of like 5 to 300.
In the meantime, the owners of that franchise saw the big number at day one and got excited and probably let lifestyle creep get in their into their life, and it's maybe overhired and
quickly you find that you have to do layoffs, and that you may have to sell your house, and that you may have bought a McLaren and you shouldn't have. There are a lot of things that happen when you have like a pop in income. Actually, funny story about that. When I started NoBaked and we opened that second scoop shop that was ours in March of 2018, 1 year after I was living in my little apartment, broke college kid. Well, it wasn't college anymore, but like broke 23-year-old. Made $100,000 in 1 month. Terrible.
Gotta feel good
for you. It does, but it's a really bad thing to have happen once. You start to think. I remember saying to Megan, I was like, "Oh, like easy $20,000 a month for the like rest of our lives. There's no way we'll make less than $20,000 a month. Let's just base our lifestyle on $20,000 a month. What's wrong with that? It couldn't go wrong." And then you fast forward like a year and a half later, and we were losing money every month, not making anything. I think that people misunderstand the lifestyle creep thing when it comes to owning a business, and also the amount of maturity it takes to be like, whether the profits are popping off or not, I'm getting a salary, a small one, and like we'll see, and like basically adjusting that salary to like top line revenue on an annual basis, not like some kind of craziness. But it's wild.
Yeah, it's another good point for running a business in general. Of paying yourself an appropriate salary for the job that you're doing and taking your profit as distributions carefully
Yeah, as like a
and
bonus, like you would at your
modestly. Yep.
company.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Pay
It's
bonuses out in February. I don't know.
yep.
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah. And don't assume that because you got X one year that you're going to be able to do it this following year and the year after that, because
Yeah.
it's just like you would in a company where you get a nice bonus one year and the company doesn't do well the next and your bonus is smaller, or you get a jelly of the month club instead of a cash bonus.
Yeah.
But yeah, great insight there on those things, especially paying yourself and being careful about it. What, I guess, so just to talk a little bit more about what you're doing now and how you're helping people are thinking about franchising, like what does that process look like? So you talked about getting your SOPs, getting all your documentation, and you mentioned your FTD.
Yeah, typically what someone's going to go through is they're going to first ask themselves, is it franchisable? So can I provide the 3 forms of value to a franchisee? Systems, brand, product. Start there. If you say, yes, I think I can provide value, like more than a charge for the royalty. The next step would be to say, like, let's systemize things. So like you'd either like hire someone like myself to come in and like do it for you. Usually taking your SOPs and just like formatting them into like a big operations manual. Every franchise has to technically have an operations manual that's attached to the FDD, which is the franchise disclosure document. So that always has to happen. The next step after that, kind of in tandem, is you just go find some franchise law firms. And I don't recommend using like a standard business attorney. You typically want to go seek out, like, you could DM me if you listen to this, or you can ask someone else, like, who are some good franchise lawyers? And there's some out there that are awesome. I'll like quickly shout out like Spadia Lignana in Philadelphia. Franchise attorneys, they used to work in the franchise world. Now they're attorneys. Now they help people sell franchises. They have a really great app that they use to be able to understand who can and can't buy your franchises, because it's also state regulated. So a lot of reasons to have a good attorney, and to like make sure you follow the rules, because it is state by state and you can get a lot of trouble. The second step really is to build a sales program or like marketing program or a lead funnel. And so like on top of the ops manual and the operations for the business, you want to build out the sales and marketing. And you really just want to build out like a baseline, like, here's how we're going to organize all of this, and here's how we're going to do it. And then the lawyers will make sure that all of that is legal. You kind of do all of it in tandem. And then the final step, usually in my mind, is to do like a soft launch. So if you have a dessert shop, I know about, obviously, all your cups will now say like, we're franchising, and have a little link to like, sign up. Um, and then even if, and basically just sign up to be a part of an email list. You'll train your staff that if someone asks about franchising, that you can direct them to the website. They can find out more on the website and fill out an inquiry, or you'll get their email. Super important to just get their email, the state or like territory they're interested in, and then like who they are. And then you start to build up a lead funnel, and then you start to manage those leads. Once you get past that step and you get to the process of selling a franchise, it's interesting. And anyone that's bought one would know this, but you go through a discovery call. Typically after the discovery call, you'll go through another phone call, maybe with like either their head of sales or like the founder, depending on the business. And then you'll do a discovery day, or you'll come to either close enough store to your territory where they can kind of show you the store and like the operation, or you'll go to their headquarters and they'll like show you all about the brand. It'll be like a half day process, and then you'll do a lunch or dinner, and then they'll ask you to sign a franchise agreement. And that's what you would be doing if you were franchising 2 people. And then after that process is over and you've sold the franchise, that's the easy part. So like everything I just described, it's a lot of work up front. And then once the sales process is going, it's very, very light work. It's not hard to sell franchises. What is hard is to get stores open. And so that's where the operations kick in. So everything you wrote in that ops manual, you then have to execute on, train people on, build a training program, and then building training program that they can pass on to their like manager or employees, depending on what style of franchise system you have. And so there's a ton of work there, but it really is a process of like building the foundation, then building the lead funnel, and then being able to execute on the thing that you sold people. So like the actual delivery of the system. Once you're getting franchisees open, and then the goal is that you were so good at that level, those 3 layers, that you don't have a ton of customer service to do, because now you are a service provider to your franchisees. You have a ton of obligations to them. They have a ton of obligations to you, but contractually, like, you have to make sure they're good. So that's kind of the quick and short version of it. But I'd recommend anyone that's like looking into it to just do what you did, which is like systemize everything at your place. Make sure that you're ready to like pass on like sales data from the last 3 years. Make sure you, without a doubt, feel like you can provide value in the 3 major ways of like brand, product, systems. And then, yeah, it's a great growth strategy for any business, especially if it's customer facing.
Yep. Yeah. That's a great point you made there too, about it doesn't end at selling it and getting it opened. Like, you are still responsible for supporting them and giving them what they're paying. You know, they're paying royalties for a reason. You got to back that up with your support, your marketing, whatever it is that was promised to them for the reason they bought the franchise in the first place. So that is awesome advice today, Jimmy. I really appreciate you being here. I hope the audience got a lot out of this. I think franchises are definitely something that comes up a lot when people are looking to buy a business. So really appreciate your time and your insight into this, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right. Thanks, Tim.
And
I appreciate it.
Before we get out of here real quick, can you just let people know where they can find you? And we'll, of course, link to all those in the show notes as well.
You can find me on LinkedIn. I post a ton on there. You can find me at Jimmy Feemen, like co-founder, No Baked Cookie Dough. And then on Threads and Instagram, I'm at James Feemen. And then on X, I think it's at like Feemen Jimmy. I don't post on there like almost at all. Just post about business stuff, and follow me to kind of learn more. And if you're interested in learning about No Baked, it's nobakedcookiedough.com.
Awesome. Really appreciate your time, Jimmy. And I will put all those links in the show notes, and look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you for everybody for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please take a second to hit that subscribe or follow button on your podcast app. Cheers. Thanks for listening to Business Buying for Financial Independence. If you're serious about owning your time and building long-term wealth, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.